You're now locked in to HBCU Pulse. We're the #1 outlet for HBCU life, talking about everything that's important to our culture, from on-campus issues to politics and what's trending on the yard. We always keep that same energy. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.
What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for a special edition of the show on today, where we are going to very briefly talk about some of the results of the midterm elections on this year. The midterm elections are not over. We have a race, of course, that's headed to runoff. And also, you know, as I'm recording this, there's still being votes that are tabulated in different states. But the Associated Press, CNN, the other reliable media organizations have been calling races all day. I am recording this on November the 9th. It is 2:55 p.m. as we're starting this. And I want to date this so, you know, you all can know. And also things could change as far as, you know, with what's going on in these different congressional and senatorial races. Let's talk about what's going on in the Senate, as well as with the gubernatorial races around the nation. So in the Senate, we have 48 Democrats. The Democrats gained 1 seat. 49 Republicans, they lost 1 seat in Pennsylvania. We'll talk about that. There are 3 seats, as I'm recording this, that are still at stake: Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. So Georgia, my home state, Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker are headed to a runoff, because in Georgia, you have to get 50% plus 1 to win outright. And typically, these past couple of elections, that has not happened. So Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker are headed to a runoff. We will vote on December the 6th. In Florida, Marco Rubio, who was the incumbent, he beat Val Demmings. In Alabama, Katie Britt beat Will Boyd. In North Carolina, Ted Budd defeated Sherry Beasley. Sherry Beasley had a really great chance in North Carolina. In South Carolina, Tim Scott defeated Christy Matthews. In Maryland, Democrat Chris Van Hollen defeated Chris Chaffee. In Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, this is the shock of the night, John Fetterman defeated Dr. Oz, Mehmet Oz. In Louisiana, John Kennedy beat Gary Chambers. In Missouri, Eric Schmidt beat Trudy Bush Valentine. In Kentucky, Rand Paul defeated Charles Booker. And in Ohio, J.D. Vance defeated Tim Ryan. And these are states that have HBCUs. So the gubernatorial races so far, Democrats have only won 2 races. Stacey Abrams unfortunately lost to Governor Brian Kemp. Ron DeSantis in Florida beat Charlie Crist. In Alabama, Governor Kay Ivey defeated Yolanda Flowers. In South Carolina, Governor Henry McMaster beat Joe Cunningham. In Maryland, history was made. Wes Moore is the governor. He's the 3rd black governor in U.S. history, and he's the 1st black governor in the history of Maryland. And also in Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro beat Doug Mastriano. So 2 Democrat wins in Maryland and Pennsylvania. In Oklahoma, Governor Kevin Stitt beat Joy Hofmeister. In Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine beat Nan Whaley. In Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee defeated Jason Martin. And in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott beat Beto O'Rourke. So essentially, your incumbents have won in the gubernatorial races. But Maryland, you know, getting in Wes Moore was a big win. And I know for a lot of schools, they read his book. I know my freshman year, we read his book, The Other Wes Moore. So, you know, I think a lot of us at a lot of the state schools in Georgia definitely know about Wes Moore and the different things that he does. I know he's visited and lectured at several HBCUs. I think he's going to be amazing. I can't wait to cover him in his tenure and what he does for the historically black colleges in Maryland. Of course, Coppin State, Bowie, Morgan, and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I definitely hope that he advocates and does a lot for the HBCUs in that state. He was just at Bowie earlier this week. And Josh Shapiro, is going to be very interesting. You know, of course, you have, you know, Channing University and Lincoln University of Pennsylvania. So a lot of wins for the Democrats in the House races. We're not going to get that much into that. And the Senate is looking very increasingly like it'll be split again, with Vice President Kamala Harris being the tie-breaking vote. Or the Democrats very well, you know, could gain control 51-49. So that could be incredibly interesting. It seems like, President Biden is going to have a very successful midterm based on these first 2 years, although it's been a lot of projections that a big old red wave was coming. I don't think that this election was the big referendum on Joe Biden, President Biden, that people made it out to be. But I must say really quickly, as a Georgia resident, I was born in Macon, Georgia. I went to Fort Valley State University in Fort Valley, Georgia. I still reside in Georgia. I voted for Stacey Abrams in 2018 as well as this year in 2022. I voted for Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, and I voted on the Democratic ticket. And of course, with HBCU Pulse, we've tried to do in 2020 and 2022 as we gain prominence, has really helped, HBCU students and young alumni understand the importance of voting and what's at stake in the election. We did the after parties with, Genesis and Anaya. And that's the reason why I wanted to make this video, because I wanted to follow up on that. Like, I didn't want to just be silent. As a Georgia voter, I feel discouraged. And I'm the most discouraged at Stacey Abrams losing the gubernatorial race in the fashion that she did. She lost by more votes this year than she did in 2018, where it was a razor thin margin. And I know why. It's going to be a lot of folks prognosticating about why, but I want to just say that it's discouraging. In 2020, Georgia turned blue nationally. We voted for Joe Biden and he won Georgia, and we got Senators John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock in. And a lot of great things have occurred because of what Georgia did. But I believe that for a sector of folks in our state, that they don't want to lose control of the state. The national races, traditionally Georgia has been red and it flipped blue in 2020, and you got John Ossoff in there. Raphael Warnock could win, although I'm a little bit nervous because Herschel Walker is trailing. He's too close. He's trailing, but not by much. Raphael Warnock, if it went for the runoff, he would be reelected senator. But that race was too close for comfort. And I'm really afraid for this runoff because we know typically that in runoff races, the vote total drops. So if it drops enough where enough Democrats don't come out and vote, Herschel Walker is going to be our next senator. Now, granted, in 2020 and in that election cycle, a lot of folks came out and voted in the Georgia runoff, and I was one of them. But I'm just nervous because I don't know if that's the new standard or if we're going to regress to the mean, because this is important because this is control of the Senate and also who's representing this state. And I'm just speaking for Georgia, because as a Georgian, I just say that I'm discouraged because Stacey Abrams did everything right to me. Did she make some missteps in the campaign? We can debate that, and you could be right, and you can win me over. But Stacey Abrams was a strong candidate. She had a great platform. She had amazing issues and amazing stories. She was a great speaker. And she ran the gubernatorial campaign before, and there was things that I believe she did differently. She was more aggressive on the debate stage. She had a lot of great platform points, and she was able to brilliantly detail her difference between Governor Brian Kemp and herself in her campaign. And she had a lot of amazing ideas for Medicare, for education, just so many different things that she had amazing ideas about that differed from what Brian Kemp has done. The thing that I really want people to understand is that you have really two choices in this system. The fact that the Libertarian candidate in the Raphael Warnock Herschel Walker race got 2% of the vote, and it fell within the margin where it was enough to take away from both candidates, because 2% of that vote went to the Libertarian candidate in the Senate race. If that person went on the ballot, maybe Raphael Warnock wins all right. He gets that 50% plus one, or maybe Herschel Walker wins. I don't know, but we never will know, because you had that Libertarian candidate that was there and took up 2% of the vote. In an American democracy, you have two choices: Republican, Democrat. And the thing you want to do is you want to put somebody in that you believe is going to advocate for your issues nationally and also at a state and local level, and that as leaders in the community, you can negotiate with. If you believe reparations are an issue that needs to be brought to the forefront, that can happen. If you believe that HBCU funding is an issue that should be brought to the forefront, that can happen. If you believe high cost of insulin and other medicines and price gouging is an issue, you put that to the forefront. If you believe that access to gambling in Georgia is something that should be brought to the forefront and be an issue that should be handled, that can be handled by someone that is willing to sit down at the table with you and negotiate and be a leader that doesn't govern on ideology, they govern on the issues that affect the members of their state or their nation or their city and how they can make them better. And the thing for me is I just believe that oftentimes in our politics, people lead on ideology and belief and not on the issues that affect the folks that they're governing, their constituents. And although I am encouraged to see that so many young voters came out, and I think the youth vote really made a change this year. I believe that you see that it wasn't that red wave. I believe that red wave was diluted by a blue wave. It was some stuff that was picked up. The Republicans probably gonna get control of the House, but I think the youth vote made a difference. I think that the reaction nationally to the Dobbs decision and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I believe that made an impact. I believe student debt relief made an impact. Things that we've been advocating for and things that affect us in our generation. I believe that is the reason why you see so many favorable outcomes in these elections for Democrats and why a lot of different races are up in the air. But I just can't get over the fact that in Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene won. She's back in the House. Stacey Abrams lost to Brian Kemp, wasn't even close. And we're going to a runoff in a race with a competent senator that has done a lot of amazing things for Georgia, that has been an amazing leader and has been fighting in the community. And win, lose, or draw, Raphael Warnock, he's going to still be in the community. Herschel Walker didn't even live in Georgia until like last year. He was living in Texas, moved to Georgia to run for Senate, has no real leadership experience to say that, hey, he can be a servant leader that can use the platform and the position of senator to advocate for issues that affect Georgians. His platform had nothing in it that was implementable. We talked about it in the after party. I'm not satisfied as a Georgian. I don't believe that in general that Georgia failed Stacey Abrams, because I think that the black Georgians, the black community, I think that black Georgians held down both Stacey Abrams and Senator Warnock. But the outreach to other communities did not work. And I think in the future, regardless of what happens in the Senate race for Georgia, I believe we have to look at Florida, at Texas, at Georgia, and think about our messaging and who you're spending the most time on. You had a block of white women voters that voted disproportionately for Herschel Walker and disproportionately for Brian Kemp, even at a larger swath than white men, if you look at the numbers. And when you look at what was on the ballot this year, specifically abortion rights, reproductive rights, Medicare, the cost of insulin, price gouging and preventing that, student loan relief for federal student loans. And you see those issues that are advocated for. And you see that voter block go disproportionately for Republicans that don't want none of that. They want to take away abortion rights. They want to take away contraceptions. They don't want to do student debt relief. I just don't know where we are. And I'm discouraged. What I understand, and, I understand it so much more now. And I think that COVID, because I'm still young. I'm 25 years old as I'm doing this. So I believe that what COVID taught me is that state politics matter. Because I used to always think nationally, Barack Obama and Donald Trump and Joe Biden and what's going on in the Senate. But I started to look more and more to Georgia and in the different states and see what's going on and how much power that the governor had. The policies of the governor directly affect your life even more than national policy. But it seems as if for certain states, especially in the South, I don't know if we'll be able to get that. I don't know if Georgia in the governor's race will ever, at least in I don't know if in our lifetime or the next few years, I don't know if it'll be democratically held. I don't know. I don't know if Texas will be democratically held, because I saw the numbers about Uvalde and about how disproportionately Uvalde went for Greg Abbott even after, what occurred earlier this year. It's discouraging because you vote You do what you can do to encourage folks that are young like you to vote and try to really get out there that this is important. And then these are the issues that are being fought for. And no matter what, people are going to still vote the way they want to vote. They're going to vote on ideology. They're not going to vote on the issues that affect them. And then even they conflate these issues like economics, like, oh, I'm voting on the economy because the economy's been bad. When the economy hasn't been disproportionately bad, inflation happens. Gas prices went down. Russia's at war with Ukraine. Like, that's why the gas prices went up. And it's certain things like that just makes me upset as a voter, as a young voter. I am smart enough to know that my vote counted. The person I voted for just didn't win. And I know that no matter what, I'm a grown man and I got to deal with whatever's in front of me. I have to run my business. I have to run my business with whoever's leading. But I just want better for the women of our country and specifically the state of Georgia, because that's where I'm at. I want better for my mother, who I talked about in the after party, has diabetes and uses insulin. I want better for my peers and the students at these different universities, at HBCUs and predominantly white institutions that have federal loans, that have Pell Grants. I don't want them to be saddled in debt and figuring out like, bro, am I going to pay for my student loans? Am I going to get groceries? Am I going to pay this car note? Or how am I going to do that? Like, I want them to take that 4 years or 6 years, or however long you have in college, getting your bachelor's, your master's, your doctorate, a certificate, what have you, your certification, what have you. And now I have to worry about, dang, I have to put a significant amount of my money aside to pay this student loan and then try to finesse my way out of paying it. Meanwhile, your credit score is lowering. So you want to buy that house, you can't do it. You want to buy that car, you can't do it because your credit score is low because you haven't paid your student loans. People don't want to talk about that. They talk about how much they try to finesse the system with student loans when that doesn't happen because you're not going to finesse that system. I don't want people to go through that. So to have that $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients and $10,000 for folks with federal student loans, to have that burden lifted off of you, I think that's amazing. I don't have federal student loans, so I'm still paying my loans with Sally Mae, but I think that's amazing for my peers and for other young folks in college behind me and the HBCU Pulse audience. But to know that that can be halted. And in Georgia, we're not getting free community college like how Stacey Abrams was promising, because Brian Kemp's not going for that. College is not going to be more affordable under a Brian Kemp regime, at least from what I'm seeing, because that wasn't in the plan. And it hasn't been since he's been in office. And then even you put a Herschel Walker in the Senate, all the things that are being fought for and the things that we're benefiting from, we're not going to get. I just don't know, man. And, we'll see what happens in Nevada and Arizona. And, we'll see on December the 6th what occurs in Georgia in the runoff. We'll see. But it's just, yeah, the Democrats did well, and I'm happy. I'm happy for John Fetterman. I'm very happy for Wes Moore, especially me understanding his story, having to read his book as a freshman in my orientation class, 2015. And I saw, his story and all the things that he went through to get to this moment. And who knows what his future could hold. I'm happy for him. But as a Georgian, as someone that tried my best to advocate and fight, and we did these shows late at night, and you had Genesis and Anaya that were up, and they were speaking their piece, and they're on the ground at Fort Valley and in the community trying to get folks ready to vote just for this outcome. It's not even close. Not a runoff, outright win. It's frustrating and it's discouraging. But I'll continue to have hope because I know that voting matters, and I know that change is going to happen at the ballot box. Change happens in Black businesses. Change happens in Black churches. Change happens in Black schools, both universities and also K through 12. It changes there. We have to change our mindset, the way that we carry ourselves in our community, the way we share money and circulate money in our community, the way as media outlets like HBCU Pulse, the information that we gather, if we give the right information, if we put our people in position to know what's going on and to gain opportunities to have an understanding and the knowledge of what's going on in our communities and in the world. It doesn't just start at the ballot box, that's true, but politics governs our life and it affects our life disproportionately no matter if you feel it does or not. And that's what sort of has me discouraged, is that when are we going to finally as a group of people, as an American public, when are we going to understand that? And when are we going to finally agree on the issues that really, truly matter and can truly push us forward? And when are our leaders going to stop governing on ideology and start governing on the issues that are affecting the constituents that they serve? I don't want to go on and on, but I just want just like how we did with the after parties and with Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker, and Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp, I had to sort of give my take on it. The midterms aren't over. However, we know that Stacey Abrams did lose. We know that Raphael Warnock's heading to a runoff. We know that Val Demmings, who had a lot of steam going into this election, she lost to Marco Rubio. And we know that Ron DeSantis won in Florida. Now, these are HBCU states. In Texas, Beto O'Rourke lost to Governor Greg Abbott. These are HBCU states. So if we want change to happen, we have to really reevaluate what we're doing. And I think we have to reevaluate our strategies. But honestly, you'll hear a lot of prognostication. I will say this again. I think that Stacey Abrams was a great candidate. I think she is a great and very competent politician. And maybe she did make some missteps, some mistakes, and some errors. Maybe she did. But I don't think it is as pronounced as people will say. I think, and I do think, and I was even on this train, but I do think that the one time I think of, black men aren't voting, that was over exaggerated. I think that messaging and who you're delivering that messaging to is the huge issue. And who you're trying to convert over when some of these folks, they know who they're voting for. The debate didn't matter. The speeches didn't matter. President Obama coming down and speaking and just putting on a good old show, that didn't matter. He won on the ballot. It didn't matter. Because people knew who they were voting for when they saw the ballot, when they saw the R and the D by somebody's name. Got to be real here. But we're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to advocate. And we're going to be ready for 2024 and whatever the rest of this midterms give us. But that's all I got to say. Thank you so much for listening. If you have to do a runoff for your state or for Georgia, December the 6th, make sure to vote. We'll have some stuff coming up for that. But I just want to give how I felt. Thank you so much, you all, for listening, to this, episode. But also, thank you so much for everyone that tuned in to the Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker debate. We had a lot of folks that tuned in for that, and it was an interesting time, to say the least. And I appreciate everyone that tuned in for the Stacey Abrams, Brian Kemp debate breakdown that we did in October. And we'll look to have some coverage for you in December for the Georgia runoff, and we'll look to also cover what's going on politically in these other HBCU states. But nevertheless, thanks so much for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you on the other side.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.